I actually don't know you very well, right? We met yesterday.
We met yesterday. Yeah, for the first time.
Yeah, you had a book in your pocket, I saw.
Yeah, you know what I did? I brought this book intentionally for two reasons. One, because you can flip it to any page and start reading. But also the banned books mentioned yesterday. Lolita, Lady Chatterley's Lover. But no one had heard of, that I talked to, had heard of William Burroughs.
No?
Yeah, you have.
Yes, of course. He's quite well known.
Okay.
Because of his cut-up techniques.
His cut-up techniques are fantastic, yeah. But
as I understand it, he literally cuts up pages, and then you have all these weird psychedelic sentences.
Yeah.
It's one of his inventions.
Yeah, he invented with a partner. He invented the cut-up technique. I don't know if that you can really say that he invented it, but
yeah, it's a lame way of saying it.
The way I picture him working at that period, which began at Naked Lunch in 1959, which was published in Paris and then banned in the U.S. As he was really screwed up on drugs, and he screamed into a microphone, and then he transcribed it in very sloppy ways. And then he put it together into this opus that is Naked Lunch, and it went on for a few novels in this style. So he's a prose stylist. It was offensive. He killed his wife, and this is how his writing story kind of starts. He killed his wife in Mexico City. And I've been studying this for a while because I have letters that he was exchanging with his psychoanalyst at the time. So I've been trying to publish this paper on it, but nobody's really taking it yet from me.
But it's interesting, this fact that the famous writer started his career with killing his wife in the light of what happened yesterday with the Houellebecq-Kirac court case, right?
Yeah.
If you consider the question, what is art?
I mean, I don't really have much to say on the subject of what is art. The legal issue is fascinating. Yeah, I'm at the same, I think, in a lot of ways as Stefan and Kirac, where I want to be writing something that will put me in jail, which is part of what attracted to me.
Can you explain that a little?
I mean, I said that years ago, but I don't know what that impulse or compulsion is exactly in me, but what I would say is to disrupt the symbolic order. I'm very tame right now. So the symbolic order would be all of symbols, the way we communicate, everything, pictures, signs, language especially. So I think that with language, images, you can subvert the symbolic order, and then new fantasies will arrive. Out of new fantasies becomes a new reality. So I like the Honeypot film a lot, and I don't like pornography, but I like the Honeypot film because it is a step beyond pornography. I say it's parapornographic, which means beyond, and it also means it protects you like a parachute. And this is because we are so saturated in a wasteland of images that it has no real meaning anymore, the pornographic. Everybody's making it, you can do it. There's no moral There's no moral argument. So the case is kind of fascinating to me because I don't think that it really has a reason to exist. I equate law with desire. Okay. So you can write down a law and you have the strict by the letter thing. But because it is symbolic, the writing of the law, it's interpreted in multiple different ways. So really, what's happening is that is one person's desire versus another, especially in a civil, what we call in the States a civil court case, when you sue someone for money. It's just one party versus the other, right? So in that case, yeah, it's a disagreement about what the symbols mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think... I think that both Kirac and Houellebecq, they are both beyond the pornographic. And I think that my original thought was that it was a show trial. Do you know this term?
Mm-hmm.
So, that it was just to build publicity for both parties. But now I kind of see that there's also an impulse from both parties to get to this point where you are like arguing with you're pressing the boundaries of the law. I don't know. You can never know how intentional that is with somebody, you know, but it's always partially intentional, right? There's always some part of you driving towards that something, and you might not be in control of it, you know. They listed a bunch of prescription drugs that he was on. Maybe I didn't catch some of it, claims. But in any state of mind that a person might be, that there is a drive to do something that's inexplicable in some ways. And when you bring it to court, you get to explain yourself. And maybe that is part of the reason, especially for Kirac, is to explain themselves to get to court. And for the other side, for Michel, it seems like either it's his fiction that he's really in control of, or he has this thing that he can't control, where he has to disrupt the order and then show everybody that he's doing it. And I see that in his novels. Yeah.
And you said that you want to disrupt the symbolic order with your art. And you said that as well about Kirac and Houellebecq, that that's what you admire, I guess, in both artists, or...
Well, in both artists, initially it's just pleasure and pain. It's these two, you know, it's an affect really on the nervous system that kind of draws you in and makes you want to know more, wants you to keep looking. Like, why is he biting at me this way? You know?
Yeah.
Why is he making me feel this pleasure? Why is he making me feel bad about all of life and, you know, this existential thing? Yeah. I do think, I think it's a disruption, especially the honeypot. It's very clear to me because of the stated intention of going to have sex with somebody.
Yeah.
from an opposite, from an opposite side of the political spectrum that you would expect artists to be in. But Kirac is good as an artist because they are aware of ideology and they're try to transcend ideology. I think I like this when they're saying we're in the middle. I think it's Tariq, right? We're in the middle, and we're going to bring all of Holland together with this film. There's a moment in the film when he says that in Honey Pot.
I want to know more about this disruption of the symbolic order.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see that? So what is the symbolic order, and how do you see Kirac or Houellebecq or yourself as disruptors of this order? Why is that your urge? Or is
it starts with the discontent. I mean, you always say that, like, the easiest line to say is that you write books because you're not satisfied with the books that you're reading, I think. So it could just be that, you know. With Kirac, I saw at first a discontent with the art world. And now it's moving into narrative cinema more so, right? Or a narrative multimedia project is probably more appropriate than cinema. So yeah, there's a dissatisfaction with that, and it's not intentional that I'm dissatisfied, but yeah, I'm not okay with. There's not a book where I'm like, this is just perfect, so I'll never do this again. You know, there's not a film, a sound piece, or anything where I'm like, this is just perfect. There's things that I adore and go back and watch and look paintings. And I don't think that every artist needs to transgress. This was a rule that I learned from Bataille when I was young, that the first thing to do is to transgress. You know, you tell like a joke to start a conversation. Like, you know, you say something just terrible, like, oh, so I fucked your mother last night, or something like that, to say, okay, so now we have disrupted it, so now we have this conversation that is a little bit more relaxed.
And why is that? Why it is more relaxed after a joke like that?
Well, if you can really make somebody laugh, which that one's not very good, you know.
Well, for me, if you would come in and the first thing you would say is a joke like this, for me it would make you much more real, I guess, much more a real person.
Yeah.
Because you say, okay, fuck with convention, we're just people.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, Stefan said, you know, the first night we went out, he said, I wanted to fuck your wife. He said that to me. So, you know, that's one way of doing it. And then last night in the pisser downstairs in the bathroom, he came up behind me and slapped me and said, hey, we're friends, huh? And then I was like, maybe. He's like, but maybe you're too smart. And so he's like trying to get me to be more humble, I suppose. And then I went up to him after to try to test him, to see, you know, if maybe he actually doesn't like me. And I said, hey, Stefan, we're friends, right? And he said, no, I fucking hate you, man. So that was like, I was like, that's good. That's exactly what you should say. It's a little funny, but yeah. So then there is that break in convention, and then there could be both love and hate, and then there's more possibilities, right?
And why were you there yesterday? What was the attraction?
You know, I was the way I came to it was because people were talking about Houellebecq in a group chat, which is like something we got into over the pandemic. People separated, and then we started meeting people on the internet, and then we started like forming factions and mobs, you know. And so you get into private conversations where you can say everything you want. And so we're talking about it with like 50 people privately, and they're just talking about the author. They're not talking about Kirac. And then an art critic I like in New York pointed out Kirac, and I had seen their name before, and this is kind of funny. I didn't take it seriously because keeping it real is not something you say in the United States. And this is like truth with a lot of ad copy in the Netherlands. There's English ad copy, and they're using American phrases, and it's written so poorly in a way that is just, you sound like if I taught black kids in Harlem, right, for a while, and if I was teaching social studies to a bunch of 17-year-old boys, and I said, "Hey boys, let's keep it real, okay?" I'd probably have chairs thrown at me. You know, I might get damaged. I might be violently hit. So that, like, keeping it real. And my question is, are you making fun of me? Are you think this is truly funny? Or do you think that, you know, like you're relating to me? But yeah, once somebody pointed out, I started watching the videos, and then, you know, the Simco video, I because there's a personal connection, I was obsessed with that, and I love the institutional critique. So I thought I was really hot onto that, and then I got up to where it came to the Patreon, and I stopped, but then I got into the Patreon, and, you know, so I mean, yeah, I'm going to pitch it as a feature article somewhere. I'm going to try and find a publisher eventually, and writing. I think it's very important to write about these things. I think it's important to write it linearly, and so not a cut up, right? Not crazy schizo prose. Not like Deleuze, not like Burroughs, but linearly with citations in a clear way, because images can really dominate the imagination, right? And people will be confused about what it is. People in the States, I think, are probably less concerned than here, because it's such an American thing already to have these sorts of trials and sex tapes. It's just like, you know, it's been a thing since Bill Clinton, over and over. I can't. My wife, if I can say that now, we started trying to list all of the sex tapes that we had, like, grown up with, and it was just like there's no end to it. So yeah, the whole thing is sort of silly in this way, unless it's a story, which Kirac is making a story about it. And I don't think they need the pornography, personally. I think they already have the story. And it's even could be better. If they could beat him to the story, if they could beat him the storytelling that they do with their cinema, if they could beat Michel when he wants to do with his novel, whatever that is, whatever he wants, the way he wants the story to be told, then they have won the case no matter what. There could also be a synthesis where the two it's harmonious. Those two stories complement each other. I think that's ideal because I like both of them. So, you know, I want to see this sort of harmonious disruption in the symbolic order where a new event could occur, an artistic event. And Kirac has done this with their art criticism for a long time, going back, thinking of years like 2016, 17, 18, 19 in New York, we were very paranoid. We were very closed off. You couldn't say, in New York, through the time when Kate is saying these things like this black lesbian, spoiled brat, right? Paraphrasing. Like, there's an eloquent way of saying that, and I have an eloquent way. I have it from an anarchist, really one of the most peaceful people who are writing, who were writing at that time, David Graeber.
Ah, yeah, I know him.
Yeah, his last piece with his wife Nika is on efflux, and it's one of the best pieces on, especially like large gallery shows. They went to the Biennale, and it was just an overarching perspective of what's going on with these large shows, and then kind of the art world at large. It gets a little idealistic at the end. It's a very long three-part on efflux piece of writing, but his take on the thing with minorities is that the reason why these institutions are seeking them out is because they're scarce. So it's an element of scarcity, which is it's a part of capital. You can drive capital because there's less of these people in the world, and it makes them more attractive to collectors, to gallerists, to curators, and then to the audience. And so there's an overlooking. You're looking over the artwork, and you're seeing the individual as this rare object themselves, which to me is not a way to look at art. The way that Kate said it, I think it needed to be said like that. And like it started to be said like that in New York, but it's still kind of on the underground. Like the Red Scare podcast, which I don't listen to, but I know enough about it. I listened to the Zizek podcast because I was involved with that magazine that was involved with him, and I felt protective of him at the time, I guess. But they say the word retard, right? And you know what this means. Retard.
Yeah.
We used to say it all the time when we were kids. We would call each other retarded when the 90s, So, but it became a thing where you can't say that anymore, because you're going to be identifying a type of person, and their families might be hurt. And there's a truth to this. You don't actually. I want to be polite in society. I want to be civil and nice, but also there's this language that is like is a part of you, and it comes up in it boils up out of the bottom of your head, and it makes you feel a certain way, and that I don't like to censor. I don't like to censor that at all. So yeah, I do approve of that transgression, to be polite. But yeah, it's still, there are people that are pushing it. I just left a group chat because the guy was trying to sell his music to us, and he was hanging pictures of, his album cover was Dylan Roof, who shot up the black church in North Carolina. And so he's trying to provoke something here. But this is something that's already happened. Scum rock in the 90s, like G.G. Allen, right? This anal cunt, these bands. But Gigi Allen's kind of like the one who was on Jerry Springer, and he was already singing like, I'm gonna rape you, and then he actually would rape people in performances on stage, and then, you know, I fuck myself because I'm the best, and these sorts of things. So this is I grew up with this already, and so this person coming and doing it now, and in this way with the music being shitty, also like very, very bad, like not good punk rock, you know, and him being stupid, and him saying he's on steroids, and it's about men's rights also, you know, and that being just very arrogant. And I can't tell he's a cartoon character because I think that he's not completely truthful, but I was just like, fuck you, I'm out, because this guy is just, you know, I don't want to see this. I don't want, your art sucks, and why am I hanging out with a dumb person? So there's a level of doing it, of breaking the rules, that, you know, you have to traverse it. And I think that is the fact that Kirac is in court. It means they got to the right point, because now it is very civil. You know, you're in the government building, and you have these people with the uniforms, and it's sort of pleasant. The judges.
So if I understand you correctly, you say, okay, so good art has to disrupt the symbolic order, and then we both grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and then you have all these very extremes, and I agree that indeed there was that there's something irritating about bad punk, because it's terrible to listen to in a way. So then you only have this fuck you mentality. So you have to return in a way, because everything is like bouncing up and down. So the real disruption of the symbolic order has to come from different forms of art. Yeah. And so Kirac with this court case versus Houellebecq is an example of like a hint of the right course, because there's a real disruption, but it's also not like fuck you, shit, rape, etc. But it's really subtle in this disruption. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's not culture. Sorry, it's not culture. It's not culture. Actually, I think that's really what it is. So it's not culture yet, right? Because it's being made in process. This is like the scum rock thing with the Dylan Roof, like the guy who shot up the black church. You know, that's already there. Well, that's easy. You know, I can point to that throughout the 80s and 90s and say, okay, you know, there's like somebody who just did this, and so it's a dead end, which is that it's actually pornographic and metaphorically, which, a porno has an end, and that's when you come, and that's it. You know, so if you watch the Kirac movie and you just jerk off, you know, bless your heart, I'm glad you had a good time, but there's more to it than that, right? It has to have this continuation. So you want to see more. This is something my teacher, old boss, mentor taught me, is that what you want from an artist is you want them to build your desire to keep looking. Yeah.
What I found really interesting, and I already said it before in other interviews, but for me, Houellebecq was the same disruptor in the literary world when I read it, when I was 21 or 22 or something. And for me, it was really this disrupting energy that I really, really liked, and I was really fascinated. And I thought, okay, this whole prose is telling me, okay, fuck you, forget everything you read before. This is the real world, and I'm going to write it down. So for me, he was a disruptor on a very like the dynamite in the literary world. But then we are now 20, 30 years later, and now for me, Kirac does the same, but on another level. And you said, you just said that it's interesting because it's like a battle of storytelling, or like a Mexican standoff of storytelling. Like, okay, we're both going to try to change the story around, and we're both going to try to make the story work. And you have the Kirac attempt to make the story work, and the Houellebecq attempt to make the story work, and that's what we're looking at, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always that way in court, with civil court, which I've been in civil court before. I've been canceled before and so on, so I can relate to this. But I'm still not fully convinced that there's not a conspiracy, that they're not both in it on together. And this is my fiction. This is my fiction. I'm not a paranoid person, but I like to make up this story. And I tell people that sometimes, not in a journalistic way, but I like that it is a collaboration. And I think in the end that it is a collab. It's going to be. And Stefan seems actually. I've read either I've heard him say or I've read in an interview that he wants Houellebecq to be happy with the movie.
I believe that.
I believe that. Of course, because he's a fan.
Yeah.
And you want it to be. You want him to be able to express the things he's expressing in his novels. Whatever it is that that gives him so much pleasure that it hurts him in life, you want him to be able to express that, and in a cinema, or a multimedia project. I haven't watched the movies that he's acted in yet, but I don't think what I've seen, the little clips I've seen, I don't think anybody's really gotten there, but maybe this is the chance for them to get there. And I think that the court is part of it. And so like the little bit I'm understanding in Dutch, the translating help and so on. And in the court, I'm thinking, is this like this testimony or her speech before it began, is this his novel? Like, is this just he's taking pieces of prose and he's saying, here, say this? She's like, yeah. It feels like I prefer to think of it as a collaboration. Yeah. Well, do you see it as a fight?
Sorry?
Do you see it as a fight?
Well, no. I'm looking at it for me, it's very complex. Because I guess I know the work of Michel Houellebecq very well. I've read all of his books and a lot of books 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And I know the work of Kirac very well because I saw almost every movie of them like 2 or 3 times. So good. I'm really invested in both.
Yeah.
Like I really admire both because of what you said, because of this disruptive energy. What I really like about that, when I was 22, 23, I was really frustrated as a young man and artist. In becoming an artist. Mm-hmm. And then for me, Houellebecq helped me looking through things like, okay, we are in this neoliberal system, in this world where, and he describes it very, very neat. Like, okay, it's you have the marketplace, you have sex, you have this industry, you have this neoliberal world, and you have to survive in it. And this was like an X-ray for me. It's like, it's a cliche more or less to say it's like looking through the Matrix, but for me that was the Matrix moment. It was actually not the Matrix movie itself. It was the Michel Houellebecq books that gave me the looking glass. So what I like about Kirac now, they do that with the artistic world, and I'm in the artistic world my whole life. Yeah, I've been in the artistic school system, and then in becoming an artist, I've traveled through multiple how do you say subcultures, like cinema, the cartoon movie world with my brother, the theater world, the literary world, YouTube world. the school system. I'm a teacher as well. So for me, they give me tools on the same way as Michel Houellebecq did to see through these subcultures. And I'm in a way left, progressive orientated, and then I see what's the prison, in a way. So for me, it's really they really help me see through things, as Michel Houellebecq did 20 years ago. So the standoff for me is really weird. Because I think, okay, why don't we all get along and drink a beer? Because you both help me see through things, So for me, it's not really clear what's happening. I just want to ask people. That's why I'm asking now to you and to all the others.
We won't know until we see the film, so we have to see the film.
But what would you say to this question after what I just said? You already said more or less tongue-in-cheek answer, like it's a complot, but I don't believe that you really believe that. So
either the Matrix has always existed since language began, so since people communicated with symbols. So either that or it does not exist. And so we're in this constant process of communication in the symbolic order, where we are doing something that where there is a concealment of something that you don't like, and it is revealed by, I like the Heidegger essay, Question Concerning Technology, because techna is art, craft in Greek, So I like to think of it's technology too. That does the disruption. You have to separate a little bit of technology, and I think we spoke about this. But to be on the avant-garde of digital, of what is happening in the media, you really have to be going as fast as the graphics cards are going. You have to be able to find a way. Like Elon Musk buys 100,000 graphics cards from Taiwan before the invasion. It's just threatened. You have to be able to find a way to hack that. You have to be able to find a way to hack your computer so you can run as fast as he can. It's a very difficult thing. Jackie Connolly does it, and so to break this world of video games open, and to kind of reveal if you're stuck in this matrix. I mean, everybody in the whole world is upset with neoliberalism right now. There's really nobody. There's supporters of it, that say that, but I don't believe anybody, because in the right in New York City, there's this very strange thing that's happening that has never happened in my lifetime, where a bunch of money is pouring in from Silicon Valley, from Peter Thiel, and I can't even talk about these people because I don't want to not get money. So with respect to them, whatever. There's a debate between Peter Thiel and David Graeber before Graeber died in 2020. That's on YouTube. But anyway, so everybody, they want this Curtis Yarvin character, Moldbug. He talks about this thing he calls a cathedral. He's epistemologically flawed. He has huge gaps in knowledge of where he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, right? But he does hate the same. He kind of feels boxed in. However you want to say it. You don't have to say hate. I mean, you have to be you have to go through your life existing and as I said, be civil and polite and live in a city with other people. But he doesn't like the same thing that I don't. I spent my teenage years as a card-carrying anarchist, and I read Marx for years on end with sociologists, and just it was always the Frankfurt School and this and so on. That you had to get to this point where there needs to be something radically different that happens. And actually the threat is now it's real, which is impossible to express until it actually happens, but there could be cataclysmic destruction from numerous directions. War, environmental degradation, famine and pestilence, biblical sort of destruction. Since the atom bomb it was invented, that threat has been persistent in our lives. So if everybody's feeling compressed, the danger gets larger and larger. And then actually trees start catching on fire randomly. In California, we have this pandemic and so on. And so, yeah, it's starting to become real because people die. Wars that are bigger than the wars that were the proxy wars or whatever, the U.S. imperialism, threats of that, a world war. We have to get out of it. Like, we have to get out of it. So, yeah, that's why they're there, and Kirac's there. That's why Michel is there. So they're trying to get us out of it. I don't know why the court has to decide. The court is liberal, I think. They're just holding up. I mean, Amsterdam is the home of liberalism, as I understand it. That's where it comes from. It comes from Spinoza, and then it comes from actual, like, real collective kind of economy, and then the stock market, right? From the East India Company, right? The first stock market in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of where it kind of just began, right? And it's a wonderful thing because we broke out of a lot of things that were terrible at the time and destructive. But every ideology, once it becomes seriously an ideology that you have to uphold with threatening other people's lives, making people feel artistically oppressed, miserable, smoking because I'm going to keep I want to stay alive because if I stop smoking, then I'm going to die. Like, that kind of misery. Yeah. You need to bust the fuck out of it. And how aware I have that question of Houellebecq, how aware of it is he, and how much of it is a performance? If you're writing it down, it's not really you. It's all the time you. It's not. There's an ontology that exists, but it's temporary. So you can be that for a moment, but there's not. I don't think that is. It's not the same person. The whole, And so he writes it down, and then that's that one, and then it goes on to the next one. Yeah.
Well, what you said about Spinoza and the starting point, mm-hmm. where we're at, and how do you see Kirac and Houellebecq both as disruptors trying to get us out of this threatening mess we're in, this neoliberal swamp, this globalization, and that it's that the double irony of the situation is that now a judge has to rule to decide how to get out of this mess. Although the real thing behind all this is that they both try to make a story out of it, like real good storytellers do, to create a way out of this mess. That's a really good way of seeing. Yeah, looking at this situation. So thank you very much for your time and your open way of looking at this psychedelic view on the subject.
I'm not on drugs. I'm clean, but okay.
It's good. It's a good disclaimer, but thank you very much.
I do appreciate it. It was fun.